Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this week's edition of the P Coffee Brown Show. I am here with one of our famous troublemakers. We'll have other people to pop into the segment later on in the discussion. But welcome to the show, Jason. How you doing?
Man, I am ecstatic. I'm doing well. How about yourself? Can you not hear me?
You know what? All is good in the hood. All is
Oh,
good in the
okay.
hood. Can't I can hear you.
It must have a delay or something. That's fine. Huh?
I can hear you. Can you hear
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Okay, we're good. We're good.
Can you hear me now? Is it good?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
All right. I guess it's playing games with us right now. We was just fine 30 seconds ago. I mean,
Right. Now it
this
wants to
is
have a odd delay or something.
yeah, but it is what it is. That's the life of
Right.
technology. But you know, I was just thinking, Jason, it's been a fantastic week so
hmm
far. Everything has been going smoothly, and I definitely wanted us to talk about some things going on in the world
Let's
today.
talk about it.
Jason, it's still cool in Texas. What's going on? You turn the heat off?
Um, yeah, the weather's definitely been very interesting. I think in March, once in April, and so far once in May, we've had some high wind days to where like for a day or two the wind is just blowing. Feels like a light hurricane is coming through or something, or a little tropical storm, either followed by a cold front or some rain. So yeah, the weather's definitely been interesting.
Very much so. And I'm looking like, where is the heat? It's no heat in sight.
I'm not complaining because we got some 100-degree days coming, but I just kind of wish it'd be a little more consistent.
Yeah, I think we're being set up for something for the summer. I don't know what, but it seemed like a little bit of a setup.
See, you feel like I feel. Yeah, yeah, there's definitely something going on.
Yeah, it's some brewing going on with this weather. So, speaking of weather, the weather in the White House is still a little bit cold. It's a little bit cold in the White House.
Right.
But it seems that President Trump is starting to kind of come to a place where he's kind of considering the tariffs and how to address it. So what I've
hmm
been seeing in the news is that he is in negotiations with China because we need China. Definitely
hmm
need China. We need to keep that relationship intact.
hmm
So it looks like he's attempting to kind of make things, go across a little bit more smoother with them. But my brain is like, why aren't you just doing that with everybody?
Um, for one, our commander in thief, Mr. Orange Man, he has definitely proven himself to create problems and then act like he fixed them. So I almost feel like with this tariff stuff, it's not to say that we don't, as a country, we may not need to make some adjustments to the tariffs, but to
Hmm.
go in there like a wrecking ball when other countries actually control most of our technology is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, and I definitely don't want us to go back to the COVID days where things began to slow down almost to the point of us not being able to, function because of
hmm
certain aspects of our technology not being accessible to us for the needs that we have. Because remember how the
Right.
car industry suffered greatly because they didn't have enough chips. But now it would be we got plenty of chips, but we just cannot deal with the tariffs, so we still not gonna ship them because we don't want to deal with the tariffs. So it's like,
Right.
let's
So
not
it still
make
be
things so
so it
chaotic
still
if we get to have a problem like that.
right. It still becomes a logistical problem one way or another one. So whether it is not being able to get them or not being able to afford them, they're still not getting shipped. So here we go. Right.
Facts. And we don't need those problems. We don't
Right.
need problems. When I had my boutique and I kind of was thinking about, we still do it when we do lives and things, live shows and stuff like that. But I was like, man, if I decided to relaunch my boutique, it would be a challenge because I would have to pay a astronomical amount of money to get my pieces directly from my actual vendors that are in like places
hmm
like Turkey. It would be bananas to try to get it over here. Like I'd be like, I gotta pay all that to get this. So it wouldn't be equal or balanced out for sure.
Well, yeah, it's not even just the price, the cost of things these days, but it's also getting it here.
Right.
So, what on the Breakfast Club, I think Jess Hilarious, I want to say it was last week, was talking about some young lady's shop that she goes to, I guess in either New Jersey or New York, to where she gets her nails done. The lady's about to go out of business in a couple of weeks because basically she can't get the product. So not only did she have to place an order that was astronomically higher, she still has not had the order come in. So she paid the money a couple of weeks ago, for the product that she needed, the extensions, the polish, etc.
Right.
And the stuff still hasn't come here. So not only did she pay more for it, but it's not showing up.
And that's kind of crazy. Now that you say that, I didn't even think about that part because most of them, most salons, they buy in large bulk to have things shipped over to them.
Yeah,
And then it's gonna be another situation where you're gonna go in there one day and your nails were once $35, they're gonna be $99 to get your nails
right.
done. Like $99 to get my nails done? What?
Well,
So
that's a good thing, maybe potentially, because maybe you'll save that money and start doing them yourself again. But
oh
that's the only
boy.
positive I can think of. But
And only coming from a guy would you say something like that. Only a
I'm a
man.
guy. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, only a guy would say something like that. All the ladies are being there like, dude, just talking about,
Exactly.
and you just coming in full guy. You know what? That'd be a blessing in disguise for you to be able to do your own nails. What a blessing. I don't think so,
Right.
love.
Well, that
I
might
don't think
be. I
so.
mean, that might be all that you can afford at some point is the nail polish.
Listen, I'm gonna keep trading, and I'm gonna keep trading, and I would just make sure I get some money out of the market so I can do what I gotta do out here in these streets.
Amen. I like
Listen,
it.
speaking of trading, Jason, I heard recently that you actually started trading. How's that going for you?
So far so good. I cannot complain. I started looking at it and doing some research for about a month or so, and finally pulled the trigger after I got comfortable. Started playing with some real money, and so far success. So we can hopefully we can keep that going.
Well, congratulations on that. That's pretty dope. That's pretty dope. All
Hold on,
right.
is it gonna do it? Is it gonna do it? It ain't doing it. It doesn't
Ain't
like my
doing
thumbs
it. It's
anymore.
straight bugging. Straight
It doesn't
bugging.
like my thumbs anymore. I guess
It
it
don't
used to
like
give me
your
an
thumbs.
explosion.
You might need to do something with your thumb. Get some work done on your thumbs and see if your thumbs,
It's not even doing one.
it ain't
Hold up,
even
is it
doing
doing
one.
the heart?
It ain't doing
No
nothing.
heart.
No
See,
love.
yeah.
No love. Well, it might be upset because it might be a tariff on your phone now.
Gotta pay extra for the hearts
You
and
gotta
all
pay
the others.
extra for the hearts and the thumbs up, okay? You ain't
Darn
even
it, Orange Man. Yeah, that's funny.
You
That's
know
funny,
what?
but
That
no.
is hilarious. And in other news, in Christian news,
Talk
Bishop
to me.
T.D. Jakes recently gave his church over to his daughter.
Really
Congratulations to her and her son and her husband. I mean, yes, he actually went ahead and passed the baton and is going into retirement, which I think
interesting.
but I think it's wonderful. After this, the last bout of illness that he had, I think
Hmm.
probably it's time for him to really enjoy his life and his wife while he's still is able-bodied and in good health. He recovered fully. He looks like he's doing really well, so it's a great
Hmm.
time for him to do that. A lot of pastors don't ever do a changing of the guard until
Right.
they pass, and then the other person, the next heir or the next person to take that position shows up. But in this instance, I like that. I like that he's doing it ahead of time and he's there to see what happens, and he can still
Hmm.
have some type of say so in how things are going and how he wants to still see that ministry to flourish. Another friend of mine, he'll be 60 in 5 years, and so he's giving up his church too when he turns 60. He already has a successor in place and he's grooming
Oh
him
wow.
to give it up
Okay.
at 60. So I think it's a smart idea. I think that's really, really smart. And it shows that they're not um, having a power struggle, if you will, about
Hmm.
keeping those roles and positions, understanding that the next generation, we need that next generation to step up because it's a new generation of believers. It's a new generation of faith based things going on in the world now, and
Hmm.
people need new voices. Not to say that he's not, don't get me wrong now. I love Bishop Jakes. I think he's an
Hmm.
amazing orator. But nowadays people are definitely looking for, something interesting as far as in connection and tied into this new thought process on ministry and leadership. We never did have like crazy stuff like social media years ago. We didn't have stuff like
Hmm.
that affected, ministries and how they flourished and how they ran. So this is going to be interesting. I'm curious to see and kind of to see what's going to happen with a lot of other leaders over the course of the next decade and how they handle having a successor in place and giving over those rank, those leaderships, giving that leadership over to them. So I'm curious to see how that happens in the next 10 years. But speaking of leadership, we're talking about something interesting tonight.
Hold on,
Leading.
hold on, hold on, hold on. Let's not bypass this moment.
Okay,
To
let's not
to
bypass
No, 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 because here's the deal. I got my rambunctious me and I got my PC me. My rambunctious me wonders if TD Jakes is stepping down because of the Diddy tapes and not because
it.
of illness. The
Oh,
PC me agrees with you 100% from a business standpoint that as
yeah,
we start to get older and we start to have different ailments and hopefully you're breeding successors or you're bringing up
absolutely.
successors.
You gotta have
And
success.
I agree that you should not wait until you can no longer function or pass on.
Right,
And of course, we never know when we're going to pass on, but
correct.
you shouldn't wait till your health gets so bad to where someone's helping you up onto the into the pulpit to sit here and preach a word or whatnot,
Right.
before you bring someone else up.
And
So, like I said, the rambunctious me kind of wonders why,
but the thing,
but the
but
PC me says it's a good thing.
I would have thought that if that were
Right.
the case, indeed, I would have thought that he would have done that at least a year ago.
That makes sense. I like that. That makes sense.
For him to do it now doesn't really make sense because, as it stands, he's no longer mentioned in that case as
That's
it
very
stands.
true. See, that's why I like you right there because basically you just brought up a darn good point.
Yeah,
I was trying to poke the bear a little bit, but you know what? You're 100% right. I love it.
yeah. No bear poking. No bear poking. Seriously, leave the bear alone. That's why your phone not working. That's why your phone not
I'm
working.
trying to poke the bear. No, okay. I got you. Yes, ma'am. Now you was bringing up something. You were saying speaking of leadership. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
speaking of leadership, leading
Mm-hmm.
while broken, can we inspire others while we're
Mm.
healing ourselves as leaders? I was thinking about this topic, and when I first kind of thought about the topic, I was like, "Ooh, this is a hard one," because on the one hand, you think to yourself, people need to step away to address what they need to address,
Mm-hmm.
for their personal and their professional, like that public display and that private aspect of healing. But what if they can't step away? What if there's no one to take that person's place?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens in those instances where you have a leader who cannot step away based on the business that they have, the type of
Mm-hmm.
the way that it's designed and set up? Sometimes they can't step away. The challenge with that is, are they going to be mature enough to get the support and the help that they need and not bleed all over the people that actually answer to them?
So my first question would be this. Let's define, I guess, what aspect of broken, because technically all of us could be considered broken in some form or
Right,
fashion.
right. Well,
Do
I
you
mean,
mean like a death in the family or a ailment, or are you
no,
saying
no, just
just
in life in general, because
okay?
when you think of brokenness, there is a lot of variables to it. But
Mm-hmm.
let's think about brokenness from how it will affect subordinates.
Okay.
A divorce,
Yeah.
some type of abuse,
Yeah.
some type of mental challenges that a person could possibly have, where
Mm-hmm.
they don't have a mental illness, but they're having some mental challenges, not
I
an
like the way you
illness
worded
per
that.
se, but
Right.
they're having some challenges. Or then you could have somebody who finds out that they do have a mental illness or some
Mm-hmm.
type of long-term medical condition that they're going to have to suffer through while they're leading. recently there was a leader that I know who actually found out that they had cancer, and
Mm-hmm.
they had to step away from their leadership role and kind of lead from
Mm.
the background while
Okay.
they address their medical needs and go through several surgeries, not just one, but they have to go through several surgeries. Matter of fact, another leader that I know, they're in the middle of selling their actual business because
Mm-hmm.
of a medical challenge with a close family member that they're going to have to be there to support.
Right. Right. I mean, in that instance, I can understand why certain things happen. If just dealing with some mental challenges and maybe not, even if it's lightly, I'll say lightly health related,
Hmm.
most people I think could probably work through, whatever it is and still remain in that leadership position, provided they're being open and honest about what it is they're dealing with. If you're one of these people that always has to look like you're 100% put together, you're this high ranking official and you always got to put on this facade and everything else, is I don't see how that works, and I can only see it crumbling, right?
And
But
I
if
can
you
see
let
that being a mess too. I agree with you because if you think about it, if a person puts on that facade and that's how they have appeared, then
right.
it's going to be very difficult for people to be receptive of their frailty.
Exactly. And I think that that is the perfect opportunity when you are dealing with something, or when you start to deal with something and you know it's going to potentially get worse, to go ahead and have a talk with your flock, if you will, right? Your
Mhm.
people, and say, hey, look, you don't have to be 100% open about every little thing. You don't have to say, well, look, I just got diagnosed with cancer or something like that.
Right,
Or you can
right.
say, look, I recently, found out that I have an illness. It's going to take me away. And there's going to be times when I'm weak, and maybe even at times when I'm incoherent. I need for y'all to step up. I'm here for y'all. I'm here with y'all. I appreciate y'all. Whatever you got to do, just talk to them. Definitely edify your employees or your flock, if you will, and just be transparent, man. I mean, I've always gotten a lot of positive feedback just being transparent, being vulnerable at times. You can still
Mhm,
be strong and
mhm,
vulnerable.
mhm,
I
mhm.
mean, think about the memes that go around, especially during the season where everybody starts getting depressed around Christmas and everything else, and they always have these memes go around that say that check on your strong friend.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
this is the opportunity to say, number one, check on your strong friend, but the strong friend,
Mhm.
you don't always have to be strong. This is your time to actually loosen up some, right?
Yeah,
You can
yeah,
take your cape off, because a lot of times, even being considered that strong friend is you want to take the cape off and they keep putting it back on you.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? You're trying to get the cape off, and because you're trying to be vulnerable, and they're like, no, 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 you don't have any problems. Here goes your cape. You still got it. So this is your opportunity to take that cape off and say, hey, I'm having some challenges. I need for y'all to step up. This is what's going on. What can we do? Let's do this.
yeah, yeah. And welcome Vincent to the stage. Hey, Vincent, how are you?
Never would have made
Let's see
it.
if it works now. Okay, so it ain't a Vincent thing either. Okay.
Talk about never would have made it.
Yeah, this the weather is horrible over here.
Oh
Oh,
wow.
on the
Yeah.
Yeah,
north
it's
Look,
side
it's
is bad.
yeah, it's really really bad, man.
we
That's because
literally,
you're on the north
Vincent,
side.
no joke.
Well, no, I'm on the suburb of the north side, so I'm on the outskirts.
So we literally were talking about the inclement weather conditions and how the weather has been presenting itself for 2025. So
Right.
it's just been interesting weather conditions, period. Period. Like point blank.
My
But back,
suggestion,
yes,
hey,
it's been a whole vibe and a whole hot mess. But we're
yeah,
we're, we're talking about, this leading, being the type of leader to have to deal with personal pain and transformation while you're in that hot seat of leadership, where you have people that you have to still lead people, you still have to be accountable for people's success and things like that. I
hmm
it's so interesting to me because it's a rarity. And you guys can tell me if you know somebody that actually did it. Most people that actually end up talking about their pain is because they're pushed to have to talk
Hmm.
about it in public because something came out. It's normally not them taking that initiative. Say for instance, it's some kind of scandal, that just showed up, but the scandal has been brewing. Instead of them getting in front of it and kind of saying, you know what, there's something coming up, and I don't want y'all to be surprised by it. I'm not at liberty to tell you exactly what it is. However, this is something I'm going to have to address. And as your leader, and because I care about you guys and how our business is ran, I need y'all to know that my name has been mentioned in some very unfortunate circumstances.
Well,
yeah, and based on what I've shown you in times past, I just ask that you guys stand beside me, because I will tell you, I am not guilty of anything that's being said at this time. It is ugly. It's going to get very ugly, but I didn't do what I'm being accused of. And I need you guys to stand by me based on what you have known of me and what you've experienced with me as your leader.
First and foremost, you got to have that transparency in order for someone to trust you.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And then, honestly, you got two types. You got those who suffer in silence, and you got those who rather get it out and get it over with, so they can somewhat start that healing process / time that they need to maybe vent as well, so to speak. Because you have those people, man. Yeah, they always the solid friend, the rock and everything. But guess what? Rocks get cracks. And sometimes them cracks can be real severe, and it's only take the smallest nudge to make it just crumble. You gotta have somebody to talk to, man, especially being in leadership.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because I think a lot of times people that are in leadership, they sometimes they become even more frail because they're not leaning in to getting the kind of support that they need, because life is going to happen. It's inevitable. And depending on, what has happened in your yesteryears, you never know what's going to pop up, because people can be very unkind, especially as they see you thriving and becoming. And they'll show up with all kinds of stuff as you're thriving and becoming. All of a sudden, here they come with some foolishness and something that's being said that you did. You're like, what? I did that 32 years. Are you serious right now?
Yeah, and they want to hold you accountable of something that happened. Like nobody's perfect, man.
Right, like the Bill Cosby situation.
Yes.
Even though he went to jail and all the things that happened with him, it's still, as I followed that case, it was so circumstantial. It was like I didn't hear anything that was concrete. It was a bunch of, and don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I think it's important that people share what they need to share that has brought harm to them, even if they do wait to share it. I do think, however, that the attacks, when they show up, they're so strategic that they're not real. You know what I mean? Like the minute that he decided that he wanted to buy a major television network,
that's when the issue
here comes
started.
this big scandal.
Well, look at, you got another dose of that just now with Shador Sanders and Deion Sanders.
That's
thing.
a good point.
That was not toward Shador. That was toward Deion.
Yeah.
And what's really kind of sad is they used his kid, his child, to get back at him. Because you're looking at a man who is, I was looking at a podcast with Dr. Umar. He's the only athlete that has a ring in baseball and football. Nobody else has it.
Yeah.
And it's just that he came in, they could not stop him. Meaning he yes, he has an ego. Yes, his approaches are a little bit questionable sometimes, but that's who he is.
Yeah.
But he can back it up.
Yeah.
And they didn't, and they didn't want to, they wanted to kind of quiet him. And that's what it was. Just like you said, with Bill Cosby, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why, and he wasn't the only thing. That's what made Ice Cube step away from doing what he was trying to do at a certain point.
Yeah, he did back off, because he initially was going, even through his acting, he was going to be doing some more things and coming out more strategically, publicly, but he backed off because of some things that he did in his yesteryears that he knew
Was
would
questionable.
cause a big rift if he were to get too far out into that spotlight. And
Mm-hmm.
as a leader, you gotta be aware that this can happen. It
Mm-hmm.
can happen. Or you can go through the public scrutiny of a dissolved your relationship being dissolved in front of everybody.
Yes.
There was a pastor that was talking about that. He went through a extremely public divorce. It was very, very ugly. And he was like, I never thought that I would have to stand here and try to figure out how to even move forward with my
Mm-hmm.
congregation, after something like this just pops up. And the
Mm-hmm.
divorce wasn't his fault. It literally was
Mm-hmm.
not his fault, not at all. Even the girl admitted that she was unfaithful to the marriage and stuff like that, but they still scrutinized him, saying, basically, you didn't see this coming. What kind of man lets his family fall apart? You didn't know how to handle it. You couldn't rectify the relationship. You had
Mm-hmm.
to divorce her. So
Mm-hmm.
it was sad and unfortunate, because if somebody cheats on you, you got a right to leave that relationship.
Yeah,
You
because
do.
the covenant has been violated.
Right. So I don't have to answer to y'all, because I said I'm not going to stay with this person that decided that they didn't want to be faithful to the partnership and the commitment. And like you said, Vincent, the covenant that
Mm-hmm.
we said in front of God and all these different people that we were in front of, and said we was going to do this till we left this life. So why
Mm-hmm.
do I have to sit here and explain to y'all about this, which is very private? But she got upset. The estranged spouse, she got upset because of basically what he petitioned for. She got upset, and so she just kind of threw him under the mud, even though
Mm-hmm.
she admitted that she was the one in the wrong. She still
Mm-hmm.
threw him under the bus, which was so unfortunate, because as you can imagine,
Mm-hmm.
and this man has a very large ministry. I'm talking about
Wow.
tens. I mean, he has, I think, last time I checked, I'll give you a perfect example. He was doing like this annual 40-day fast that he does with his community. It was 40,000 people on a Zoom call. That's
Wow.
just how many people he
That's
affected.
fantastic, man.
40,000?
40,000
Yes.
people. So you can imagine with somebody like that, who is very public, very open. People know him by name, and that's why I'm not calling his name. If
Mm-hmm.
I called his name, you'll be like, "What?"
I know you. I know you're talking about. I'm just not saying that.
Very, very, very public. He went through that, and this was some years ago. This wasn't recent. This was years and years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just it's just unfortunate that he had to go through all that in front of everybody, and it was no fault of his own. So as a leader like that, the personal pain, and you got to go through this whole transition, and then you got to be smart with something
Uh-huh.
like that, because he can't go date a parishioner now, because
He
that's going to
sure
be a
can.
bloodbath. That's going to be another bloodbath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so you've been dating the people in the church now? Oh, so this what you want to do anyway? Yeah, it turns into a whole nother,
Not been dating, started dating.
no,
Oh.
but you know how to, but you already know it's not.
I know exactly
Look,
what you mean.
we know that it started, but
Yes.
Oh yeah.
The actual jury that's going to be out is going to be like, yeah, you always want to do that, and da 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 da, and yeah.
Ain't that sister so and so that was always on the front row? Now we see why she was there.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Perfect example. Perfect example. But let's talk about it from a corporate perspective.
Right.
Balancing that public strength and dealing with private healing. It's so crazy. And we got another one of our amazing panelists that's just coming in, Dr. Shamika. She came in perfect timing when it comes to corporate America and having to deal with the challenges of going through something major in an individual's personal life, and they have to address it in a public setting. CEOs, big corporate executives, VPs, and different things like that, when they have to go through their private challenges and then have to deal with it in a public setting, it can be real messy, real messy. And I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it firsthand. I have somebody's very, very close to me who is a CEO that went through a real public divorce because they were in the limelight, and everybody knew about their spouse. It was just like, dang, like how do you even handle that? How do you handle going through that? How do you handle having to deal with I'm an alcoholic? We've seen that in so many different instances with the Betty Ford Clinton, where
Yeah.
they will hide a leader and they'll let them go off to take care of what they need to take care of. But the challenging thing about that is those are leaders who have a specific status that they allow that grace of privacy. Whereas other leaders who don't have that particular status, even though they may have the money, but they may not have the status, they'll let them go into the dark, deal with whatever they got to deal with, and nobody knows about it.
Well, for one, you got to think about the fact that when you're talking about corporations, you're thinking about layers.
Yeah.
So that makes it a little easier for certain people to kind of disappear for a while to go take care of certain things, and people, it makes it easier for people to make excuses. But if you think about a leader like an entertainer or somebody who's in a smaller scale that may not have all of the different layers of leadership, before you start to get into your regular workers, I agree with you. There is no hiding. I mean, it's basically you heard John had was cheating on his wife and got caught up, or you heard John was an alcoholic. John been doing that little nose candy or whatever, and he finally caught up to him type of stuff.
Right.
And yeah, it becomes a major problem where you might have some large Fortune 500 company to where somebody ends up becoming an alcoholic and they take a leave of absence for a couple of months, right? And nobody really knows what happened. It's just they kind of disappeared, had to go away for a minute. Now here it is 6 months later, I'm back, right?
Right. And
So,
a lot of times somebody knows what happens. They just
everybody,
and
yeah.
it ends up coming out colorfully. It comes out colorfully in different unique ways, and you go, wait a minute, did they? And you're like, wait, okay, yeah.
With that, it's always messy, and nobody is. You would think in a perfect world that these people would have some kind of decency to keep certain things out, because if that is coming out, it's because somebody has let it out.
Right.
Hands down is what it is, because
Yeah.
the public should not know about that. The only way they know is somebody on the inside that are close to them, co-worker, whoever, friend or the family, spouse, whoever, has let it out.
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of just keeping that, okay, I know about it. It's not in the social media world. They wanted to get out because that's a quick jab at that person's character, and to discredit them, and just to publicly throw them under the bus.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. And we see it on the news all the time.
Oh, yeah.
We see it on the news. We see it, and even when my best friend passed away, it was crazy because there was not a definition publicly of what happened with him. It was just he passed away. Period. Let that man just go on and rest. And then a couple months later, it was all over social media where the tabloids had come up with that he was a drug addict and he was this and he was that. And it wasn't true. But the thing about it was, and it was so sad because now here it is, he's deceased. He can't defend his own honor if he wanted to.
Right.
He's deceased. And it's so crazy how that happens, because I've seen that a couple of times with people who have done heavy philanthropy work, done a lot for community, done a lot of community activism. And it's the craziest thing to me why they want to come after those individuals instead of the ones that are doing what they're not supposed to be doing.
It's a shot at the legacy to kill it. That's what it really is.
Exactly.
That's it's the attack is so strategic, and it's really on a whole different level of what's the word I'm looking for? It's really just downright just low down.
Right, exactly.
It's one thing to take a jab, it's another thing to take several jabs.
Right.
You know what? I like what Charlemagne the God says. And I mean, he every now and again he drops a nugget. And I like it. He says something to the fact of who cares about the truth when the lie is more
Yeah.
entertaining?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So
And you
that's,
know,
I know that Shamika's hopping in real quick, but
I
go
know.
ahead.
Come on in here.
Come on in here, girl.
Well, they
We can't hear you. I just heard you for a hot second and it went off again. You came in for 1 second and it went back off.
I see your mouth moving.
We see your mouth moving. We don't get
I can
no,
see the
no
smile.
words. We
Yeah.
ain't get no words.
Don't feel bad. I was like that a few weeks ago. I was
My
actually,
Lord, my
I kept
Lord,
getting dropped off the call, so I get it.
my Lord. You
And we
probably have
so
to
want to hear what you
check
got to say.
your speaker on there, on your whatever device you're on. Check the speaker and see if it's the speaker.
Like I said, the Lord, see, the evil people knew she was about to drop some good knowledge on us and try to silence her already. See, that don't make no sense, man.
Yeah, because I wanted her to kind of really talk about the mental health part of it, because
Right.
that's a big challenge when you think about when leaders are suffering in silence. That mental health part, like I gotta literally deal with this without anybody knowing, or hoping that nobody finds out about this private situation that I have going on that could be detrimental to me, and still trying to lead. And you know what's crazy about that? I have seen leaders who, they're going through something, because how they're responding to the people around them. You know that they're going through something, and it's something serious, because they don't even, first of all, a lot of times when people are going through something like that major, if you ever notice, they don't even look like themselves.
Yeah.
They're not as
Correct.
well kept. Their energy level is not the same as it normally is. Their communication is like massively shifted from what you're normally accustomed to when communicating with them. And they tend to be a lot more snappy, like judgmental and critical of
Right.
every little thing that happens. And it's so crazy, because you would think to yourself that whoever they have to answer to would be able to catch some of that. But a lot of times it goes undetected, because the subordinates who actually yield to their leadership and authority, they don't feel like they're safe to even say something.
Correct.
I have a lot of respect for those who step in the platform of anything entertaining, social media, because you have your own things you deal with outside. And for you to step in front of someone to communicate and talk, and you might not be at 100% sometimes, you may be at 70 or 80%. I have a lot of respect for you, because mentally that is a lot, because you're getting a representative of that person because of what they're going through. And who's to say, like when I came in initially, these people need someone to confide and talk to, because you don't know just how close they are to maybe just losing it.
Yeah.
And you sitting here in front of people, and everybody, I can include myself, have been in where you have been in a public eye, and you are so just out there. It's so hard to keep yourself together. It's only by the good graces that you stand together.
Yeah.
Mentally.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And and another thing too is that when you get to that place where you have to deal with the public settings and the limelight, and people are familiar with your name for whatever reason, you got to have real high emotional intelligence, but you got to have somebody in the background that you can depend on and rely on to be able to confide in.
Yes.
Imagine, I remember one time I had to do this major speaking engagement, and I had to do it. I had no choice. And as soon as I got off stage, I was devastated in my personal life, because I had some things going on in my personal life, and I was completely devastated. But I had to do that event. And I remember getting off the stage feeling like I just wanted to go crawl under a rock. Or like when my spouse that passed away, we had some major stuff going on in our marriage, and it ended up being a public display of what we were going through, because at the time I was a worship leader, and I was leading worship. It was 8,000 parishioners in the audience, that would be in our services, and people knew about my personal life. And I remember, my leader saying to me, "Well, you can't go hide under a rock because life happens. Are you going to do that every time? Or are you going to learn how to deal with life? Because life is going to happen. You can't go hide under a rock every time something, negative happens, because it's going to happen. I hate to tell you like that, but it's going to happen." And for a while, I felt like that was an insensitive statement, but at the same time, that was the path that I chose.
Technically, it is kind of somewhat insensitive, because I can say this because I've been in that realm.
Mm-hmm.
Even though that you get past it, you're losing a piece of yourself.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You're becoming a lot darker and colder.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that person who told that to you can say it. And you have to adjust to what the situation is. This is why, even though you get past it, this is where the counseling part and having somebody to confide in comes in, because even though you lost that part to get past it, you still need to regain that back, because if you don't, every time that happens, you're gonna go to a darker place each time.
But I get what she was saying, in that, it's like she used the analogy of being a pastor or a leader, and your name gets scandalized, right? Well, even in the scandal, you still have other people that need your support, or if you're a president, or you're a prime minister, or a pope or something, you can't just shrink back because life happens. So she was like, when you go through the adversity, you have to learn how to deal with the adversity while displaying the candor and the maturity in order to execute what it is that you agreed that you were going to do. The role that you said you wanted to play. You still got to play the role, but you have to learn how to, like you said, Vincent, address it. However, you got to address it privately, and not have it displayed in the public. And that's that's what her point was. It wasn't that, even though I felt like she was being insensitive, what she said made sense. Because if you think about it. If every time something happens and you go retreat, you'll never, ever be able to become.
And you're right.
Right.
That's why I always tell people, it's like, I'd rather rip the Band-Aid off and let's just go ahead and work on making up after the fact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because
I'd rather rip the Band-Aid off.
If you keep retreating, you'll never become.
To that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we hear you now, Dr. Shamika?
Go ahead, Lady Shamika.
Y'all can hear me.
Woo!
I don't know why the devil was trying to play with me in this microphone. But disrespectful. But yes, hey guys, I love this topic. I love this conversation. But when we talk about being in the public eye and having to deal with things, it is, a matter of making up your mind, making, a mindset shift when, we have to deal with those private matters in the public eye. And sometimes it's not easy, but that's why you want to stay close to people who are able to help you, walk through these things, to privately deal with the matters and not make it give people, like a scandal to talk about, through social media and all of that, because people will try to tarnish your legacy when they see that you're trying to do something. They never, ever talk about it while you're alive. They don't do that. They wait until the person is gone. And now they want to talk about what you've done and what you did not do. And so while we have the chance, and it's funny, I was just having this discussion with someone. People always say, you never go through anything. Yes, I do. But I have made up my mind to deal with the private matters behind the scenes, because now people look for me in the public eye. And what I've created is so much more than the things that we deal with, that I said, okay, of course we got to take care of these matters, heal however we need to heal, get with the people we need to connect with to, kind of handle our own personal issues but also remembering that we have done hard work. We have put in hard work
Right.
to create the legacy, to create these, platforms that we have, and we don't want to tarnish that by giving people anything really to talk about. So,
Right. And as a leader too, a lot of leaders, we have to be meticulous
mhm.
in how we approach the social scene,
Yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
it's like I used to think when I first started in ministry at Lakewood, and I'm just using this as an example because this is a really, really good example. They said, listen, we're not telling you not to drink. We're not telling you not to go out with your friends. We're not telling you to not doing any of those things. What we're asking you to do is refrain from having it on your social media platforms once
Yep.
you agree
Mm-hmm.
to be on the leadership team. Once you agree and say, hey, I'm going to be doing this and doing that, we just ask respectfully that you refrain from having those things on your social media platform, because guess what? At the end of the day, there are hundreds of thousands of people that come through these doors. And if you're the face, like I was in the greeter department initially when I first got there, then went in music, and then I went to the prayer team. But when I first got there, it's like you're in the front of the building. You mean to tell me you don't think nobody gonna know it's you? And you standing right here in front of everybody with your whole blonde head? You don't think nobody gonna recognize you? You just don't think nobody gonna recognize you? Okay, good luck with that. Good luck with that.
That's the first thing people love to poke holes in is, your
Correct.
relationship with Christ when they see,
Correct. Correct.
you do anything, because they're unaware, they're not sure of, what the word even says about, these things.
Right.
And a lot of them are what they call baby Christians. They just don't have an idea. So, yeah, we have to be very meticulous. That is
Or
one area, because they
right,
definitely will
exactly.
definitely tell you.
Or like like even with like what Jason does as an actor. Even as an actor, I got other friends that are actors. I mean, one of my guy friends, he was like, I've been married for years and I have to literally refrain from having certain kind of connections with certain actresses because it appears to be something that it's not.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's not that I'm doing anything wrong, but there's an appearance that could be attached to it. If you always see me with this one actress, they're trying to turn around every time, no matter what film we doing, me and her always rolling together. That it's just going to, even if it's innocent, it's not going to look right. And
Correct.
here it is, you
Yeah.
could be trying to get, the next major role, and your name is all in the streets, and you ain't even did nothing.
Ain't did
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Definitely something I have to be cognizant of, because I've actually had a few people that said, hey man, what's going on between you and such, especially in these stage plays?
right.
And it's like nothing. Everything was right there live and in front of you.
Gosh.
Even in parts when I've had to kiss people, it's like we don't kiss every day during rehearsal. You kind of save that for the actual show. You might get a peck here and there just to make sure you can do it, but you're not going ham. You're not going hard at rehearsal. You know what I mean? Basically,
Right.
you save it for the show, and basically what you get on the day of the show is the day of the show, right? And
Correct.
I mean, and even in movies that I've been in, those were movie kisses, man. I ain't tongue nobody down or nothing.
Right, exactly.
But some people are like, oh man, you got a chance to kiss her. And I was like, it was a movie kiss.
Right. Do you know what that is? And it's crazy because it's crazy because like people that are organically single, but they have friends of a different gender.
Right.
And when they hanging out with their people, somebody comes back and say, hey, hey, I saw the pictures of girl. I didn't know you was with I ain't with him. What you talking about?
Yeah, I know you swing that way, right?
What you talking about? I ain't with him. That's like literally one of my cousins. No joke, y'all. One of my cousins. Somebody saw me and him, and we was, I was messing with his beard. We was doing, how you playing on and I didn't know he put it on the darn we put on like Instagram or something. And somebody came back to me and said, I thought you was in a relationship, and I said, what you talking about? So they pulled the thing up, and I said, boy, if you don't take this thing down, people think that I'm over here just out here in the streets just acting a whole day.
But that's the thing, though. You don't know. So how do you assume something? You don't know.
He was like, but the funny thing about it was he was like, yeah, that does look a little suspect, don't it? I said, yeah, fool. You know, we were playing and clowning and just doing cousin stuff, just playing around, messing around. I was like, oh, you're so pretty. I love your beard. And he's like, thank you, baby. And that, playing. And all the while, he doing it with the little phone. And I didn't know he was recording it. We just clowning and playing. And nowadays everybody records everything.
Yeah.
And you'll never know what you're gonna be caught in.
Yep, true.
So, I think when it comes to leadership, the bigger picture is identifying the type of leader that you're going to be and be that person. Remain true to who you say you're going to be. Remain true to how you're going to walk about and how people will be able to see you. The perfect person that I can say that actually did that was Denzel Washington. He said, I'm going to be this person, and this is the person that I'm going to be. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Costner said the same thing. Like, a long time ago, Kevin Costner said, this is the man that I am, and this is the man that I intend to be. I'm going to be this particular guy, period. And, a lot of them were like, no, I'm keeping my nose clean. I'm not going to have a whole bunch of stuff popping up, talking about I did this, I did that. Taraji even talked about that. She said, I got a lot of scandal, in my life because of me having a child or whatever. She was like, but I don't do nothing to it cause it to be more scandal. This is just ignorant people in their own mind coming up with this. But this is the woman that I am, and this is the woman that I'm going to be. Period. Because you don't find Taraji in a lot of extremely erotic roles and just all kind of different things where she's on this public display to where people can look at her and be like, she did this. Even Mary J. Blige, even with her taking that risky role when she did Power, she still was very, very conservative. And y'all already know that should have been rated X instead of PG or whatever it was. It should have been rated X because it had a lot of explicit sexuality in there. And Mary J. Blige wasn't with it. She was like, "No, I ain't doing all that. No, y'all can miss me with that." And it's just certain things, as a leader, we have to just say, "This is what we're going to do. This is how I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to represent, and this is what y'all gonna see in my life, and that's gonna be it. The rest of it is going to be private. Period. Period."
And if something does come up, don't be afraid to rip the Band-Aid off and address it.
Exactly. And be honest about it. And sometimes you have to be honest without giving a bunch of the truth.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. It
has to be a
level you hang with. There are people who uncover you, and those people, but those who will cover you, who knows who you really are, and they know in certain settings you cannot just be a part of that. And there are sometimes I've been places I'm like, do not record nothing here. Don't even, just don't do it, because anything can be misconstrued. And you definitely got to watch the company you keep, because some people just.
That's a whole fact.
Now, Dr. Tamika, what was you doing where we couldn't record? No, I'm just kidding. Please don't say
that. You get together with your family. You get together with, your cousins, them, and everybody. They phones. That's the first thing they pick up.
Absolutely.
Listen, you be like, you miss me with all that now that y'all doing a whole lot.
Yeah.
Let me go sit in this corner. Let me go sit over here in this corner because y'all doing it. And then, and then we're judged by association always.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Always judged by association. And as a leader, it's funny because I had somebody in the organization where I support currently. I had a lady to literally say to me, she said, "Oh, Koffe, I didn't know you knew Sylvester Turner and Melanie Lawson. I didn't know you knew them." And I was like, "How you know I was with Melanie?" And she said, "Yeah, you were on their page." And I was like, "I was?" And I'm like, I'm like, I go over there and the cameraman he just got all these lovely, lovely pictures of me. I was like, "Oh, okay, all right then." But fortunately, it wasn't anything compromising. I just happened to be at a political event with them, like I am every year, a couple of political events with them. But that just goes to show you never know where you're going to show up. You never know who's going to see you.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You never know. And leaders we have to just make sure that we cover our own bases and we live a life that's consistently, like I said, who we say we are.
Yeah.
Who we say we are. It shouldn't be to where people can't identify us consistently. Be like, I don't know who she is today. Every time I turn around, she changes. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? She might be this person today, might be that person tomorrow. I don't know who we gonna catch on this day. So it's extremely important as a leader to be who you say you are. And when you have to deal with the adversities of life that are going to come up, like Jason was talking about earlier, you gotta choose how you're going to deal with them, who is going, and then you gotta know who do you need to share it with. Because as a leader,
yes,
and you have subordinates and things like that, a lot of the information that you're experiencing, you can't share it with them.
Sure can't.
It can't be nobody lateral and nobody that answers to you. You can't say nothing.
Because they're gonna try to take you out.
Yep, they're gonna use it as ammunition.
Exactly.
Every time.
Right. And while you're thinking that you're safe because this your homeboy and your homegirl,
nope,
you ain't safe.
Sure not.
You're not safe.
They're not your homeboy, your homegirl. They're just trying to see what they can see.
Yeah,
there you go.
And especially if you want to grow and you want to have an evolution within that organization and you want to become anything important, you really got to keep your nose clean there.
Very true.
For real, for real.
I think in leadership, your circle needs to be small.
It does.
Correct.
Oh, of course.
Yes,
with people you can trust.
Yeah, your intimate circle. We're not talking about business partners. We're not talking about people that you have some type of monetary gain with.
Mm-hmm.
These are people, or like we like to say within our own culture, your day ones.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be a large circle of them.
Right. Very true.
Because like I said, you have to have somebody that you could confide in, man, to be vulnerable with, transparent with, and titles are moved out the way. You're who you are.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Because at the end of the day, you're not superhuman. You're human.
Right.
And you're gonna make mistakes, man. And you don't need everybody throwing darts at you from the back and scrutinize you on every little mistake you make.
Right. Very true.
True.
And a lot of times, and unfortunately, sometimes the day ones have to be dissolved too.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not gonna be able to go.
Yeah, where you're going.
Level with
they become your 3s and 4s instead of your day ones, right?
Yeah.
Because
or nobodies or zeros, none at all.
You transition to a different area in your life, so you have to lead them where they are.
Yeah, yeah, and it's hard. It's hard because it could be. And it's even harder if you have to directly work with that individual.
Yeah, correct.
Mm-hmm. It's even more challenging. Like you got to go to work with them, you got to be around them. And you're like, oh, I can't do nothing with you outside of here. And they're like, well, why you can't do this? Because I want to get paid for real.
Nor can I share certain things with you.
Exactly. I'm about to be the next level of leadership, and I can't do what I did before. You know what I mean? I can't be, how I was before. I got other things going on. I got other decisions I need to make. I got other places where I want to shut my lights and shine. And it won't be shining if I keep doing this with you.
Yeah.
Right. Hey guys, I got another call. The work of an actor is never done. I got another call. I got to hop on real quick. Yeah, I got to do some voiceover work and stuff. Keep up the good conversation. To everybody out there, thank y'all for chiming in. I'm gonna get off. Y'all keep up the good work. I'll holler at y'all in a little bit.
Good night, Jason.
All right. Have a good one.
We are at the top of the hour, and literally, Jason got off like just a couple seconds before the end of our segment, and we are truly at the top of the hour. It's always an amazing conversation here at the P. Koffe Brown Show. Super excited for you guys that have tuned in and tapped in to be with us in this virtual space and on Roku television and all the other networks that we're a part of. So we're excited to have you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in and tapping in and being a part of this amazing segment. Until next time, grace and peace. And remember, love yourself and love them too.
Yes.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.